Eswatini King Mswati has pulled his country off the agenda, can you believe it, of the SADC Troika Ministerial Meeting. The meeting began yesterday and the deepening crisis in Eswatini and Mozambique were meant to be discussed, but as we're about to hear from Africa-Asia Dialogue's Milton Nkosi, it seems, Milton, hello to you, we're now in a position where at a Troika meeting, leaders can decide, no, we're not going to talk about the issues in my country, let's move on rather swiftly. What did you make of that? We're not discussing the biggest issue of our closest neighbour.
Yeah, that is a shame because the issues in Swaziland are just as important as they are to South Africa and the SADC region. But my understanding is that Swaziland was there alongside Mozambique, which is where really some of the most pressing security matters facing SADC were concentrated. But it's a shame, nevertheless, for King Mswati to miss an opportunity to state his own case of what is going on in his country, Eswatini.
Absolutely. We are going to talk about Mozambique in a moment, especially the region up in Cabo Delgado as well. And that's the terrorism side, it's the insurgency side, but we also cannot forget about the human rights violations, the allegations of human rights violations in Eswatini. Do you think this is because, Nkosi, the king simply doesn't want to have a spotlight shone on his own kingdom? Do you think he's running and hiding in this case?
Well, there's no other way of reading it, Gareth, because here's an opportunity. You are sitting with your counterparts, all the leaders of SADC are coming together to iron out all the issues of the region. Remember, Swaziland is not, as I said, is not the only issue. There's Mozambique, there's Lesotho, and so on. So Swaziland, or Eswatini, I should be saying, should be taking its rightful place around the table where the king can give his own account of what is happening. The democracy movement in Swaziland must be reeling because they are hoping that their issues will be central in some of the agendas that are mapped out by the Southern African Development Community in Pretoria this morning.
And it also looks like, even though it was a SADC Troika meeting as well, it was meant to unpack various issues. We spoke about Eswatini, the other being Mozambique as well. From the reports that I'm seeing as well, it didn't exactly achieve what it was meant to this weekend. It almost seems like a bit of a dud in the end.
Yes, because the issues are intractable. There are serious problems that the region is facing, especially with security and instability. Remember, whatever happens in Eswatini affects the flow of events in South Africa, and everyone is concentrated on the idea that Eswatini needs to be stable for the region to be stable. And if the king is pulling back and shying away from facing his counterparts, well, that is not helpful at all. But ironically, it may be some sort of reading between the lines for the democracy movement in Eswatini, Gareth, because for them, this is proof that they are facing a tough challenge in that country to try and democratize and change the monarchy to be a constitutional democracy. Remember that Eswatini, King Mswati, is the last absolute monarch on the African continent, and pretty few of them across the world anyway. He is a king in the biblical sense, if you like. And therefore, the democracy movement in Eswatini is trying very hard to make him like a royal in the UK, in KwaZulu-Natal, in Lesotho. All these royal families are part of a democratic system where the people have their own choice, their own right to choose their leaders. Whereas in Eswatini, the king is the king, and that's it. He does as he pleases.
I suppose the question could also be, and we'll maybe unpack this at a later stage, will SADC stand up to King Mswati in the way he's conducting himself within the SADC Troika agreements as well? But I want to just touch, before I let you go, Nkosi, on Mozambique. I know it's a couple of 100 kilometers away. Cabo Delgado, still an issue. Energy security, obviously people being attacked, and it's not that far away from our borders. It's northern Mozambique, but we have to watch that closely. We've spent money, we've sent troops as South Africa. But what is your sense on how SADC is handling this? It only makes headlines every now and then.
Yeah, in fact, the Cabo Delgado region in the north of Mozambique is about 2,200 kilometers from the capital, Maputo. And that is in part where the problem lies within that country. There's been local grievances from a long time ago, since independence in 1975, when Mozambique became independent from its colonial power, Portugal, that the local people feel that everything in Mozambique is actually happening in Maputo, in the south of the country, and therefore unemployment and poverty. And for instance, if you look at the illiteracy rate, Gareth, in Cabo Delgado is officially at 67%. But if you go on the ground, some people will tell you that it is closer to 90%. And that creates a lot of grievances on the ground, that people are being left behind. And also, of course, they've got this liquid natural gas project there, the biggest gas project on the continent, over $20 billion, 292 billion rand, that is invested there by the French company Total Energies.
And this is why we have to keep on with what is happening with SADC, especially off the back of this, what some are saying is a failed Troika meeting, if we cannot even discuss the issue of Eswatini. But Milton, I appreciate your time in joining us as well. Africa-Asia Dialogue's Senior Research Fellow, Milton Nkosi. Now, don't go anywhere after the break. A real treat, in fact, coming up in a moment, a real treat as far as sport is concerned with Morena Matupi. We have a former Springbok.